Welcome to the Post 2 frequency system, user Canis Ru. Please enter action into prompt. Play audio file recording 11.wave. Playing audio file now.
Hello and welcome to Auraria State University's one and only student radio show. I am your host, Tawny Jackson, back at long last. Hopefully my absence hasn't left you all too lonely these past 2 months. You have my apologies for this again. I hate leaving the station silent for long periods of time, but life happens. And it keeps happening. I might as well tell you what I've been up to in this time. You'll be glad to know that I've actually finally gotten done with my finals and have completed my sophomore year with a 4.0 GPA and a good ranking on the university's president's list. It was hard, I won't deny that, but I've been lucky despite everything. I mean, if I can manage to complete my finals with A's days after getting discharged from the hospital, then I can do anything, for real. No worries though, I'm feeling much better right now compared to a few weeks ago. I mean, over the past year, it's been pretty rough. My medication hasn't really been taking care of the issues as well as it typically has in the past, but really it's nothing I can't handle. But besides all that, I've actually got some pretty great news. So I'm staying in the tower again this summer, but I won't be alone. See, David, since we were doing research together, he chose to go through with an internship with the Rangers this summer. So he's staying at the cabin near the tower, and he's going to be joining me sometimes to talk about our research and any other stupid topics that we think are fun. I think that the radio episodes might become a good way to record what we're currently working on, and I'd love to info dump about it, so be prepared to hear about it, probably more than you'd like. Speaking of which, I might as well tell you about our progress so far as well. Since we've been pretty limited in what we can do these past few months, I've taken to doing more historical research, looking into records from the town's past. Like, for example, I found out that we're not actually the first to research something like this in Auraria. Apparently someone was doing canine population surveys in the 1950s here, and okay, get this, the person running the survey shares Michael's family name. I can't say for sure that they were related since, well, I can't really ask him, and the census records in our library leave much to be desired. Can't say I'm shocked, can't really expect a scientific research university to keep dedicated genealogy records, but hey, once Michael comes back, I'll just ask him then. But moving on. These records seem to be looking into different traits from the canines than what we are, but that doesn't mean we didn't find any useful information from it. Turns out the behavioral aspect of our research was already partially proven by this researcher. These animals, these wolves, they show higher aptitude for problem solving and communication among the pack, along with a higher degree of aggression. See, typically wolves observed in the wild use casual fighting as a way to set standards and positions within a pack, and this sets up their pecking order, which determines the individual wolf's access to resources according to the value they have in the order. But if this research is to be believed, then the wolves are showing extremely abnormal behavior that it's hard to believe, but from what I've seen, it makes some sense. See, well, I'd hate to say this because I know it sounds kind of scary, but it's really the only phrase that I think describes the situation well. These wolves are showing cannibalistic traits. Typically, when wolves fight inside a pack, they are not aiming to kill each other, just showing aggression to set up order. But these wolves in the older research are killing each other off in random bursts, with one wolf being killed and then consumed by the rest of the pack, which ecologically makes not a damn lick of sense because while wolves are known to do this on rare occasion when winters are harsh and food is scarce, the record shows that this phase of research was conducted during the summer months and food scarcity was not a problem. But even so, I have nothing that could possibly disprove this. There are no clear biases present, everything is properly presented evidence-wise, and the conclusions they came to, while far-fetched, are the only possible answers that could be found. Hell, if I was in this researcher's shoes back then, I would have made the same conclusions. But now what what really doesn't make sense to me is why, after observing and documenting such abnormal and alarming behavior, this research wasn't continued. The research project lasted less than a year, and then was suddenly dropped. There's so much more they could have done, like getting blood samples from some of the wolves, or pulling one of the carcasses for an autopsy. Maybe this behavior was being caused by a disease of some sort, but honestly, that wouldn't explain all the other physiological abnormalities presented in these wolves, like the slightly increased size of their bodies in both females and males. It's just such a shame that they never did any extra studies. They could have totally missed a major factor. I mean, this researcher did move on apparently to other projects, so that could be why it wasn't continued. I tried to look for his other papers and studies in case he may have continued the research under a different project name, but I couldn't find any of them on file in our library. Like, I found the library call card for his name and the list of files and found the cabinet that they should have been in, but the folders were empty. I asked the librarian about it, but he said that someone had taken them sometime last year without checking them out, and they had been missing ever since. Which sucks major league, but I am nothing if not persistent. I researched this guy online and managed to find at least a little info on his other studies. He has one called Project Sisyphus, which told me that A, this man was definitely a fan of Albert Camus, and B, that this guy did actually continue his research. Sort of. After completing the first project, he moved on to Project Sisyphus, which was a group of studies on how certain rare strains of rabies cause infected animals to behave abnormally like common strains, but with the caveat that it also causes a half-state, as he named in his studies. Apparently, after the first time the animal dies while infected, they can suddenly regain a half-state, twitching and moving around as though they were still alive to continue the spread of the disease past death, which, okay, wow, sort of terrifying, but not actually a new concept, just sort of rare since there's a type of fungi that will cause this type of behavior, but never in strains of rabies. I know I should sort of be off-put by this information, but I actually think it's really cool. Though, thankfully, I think that the strain of rabies he was talking about has probably died out since my observations of the wolf populations here have never shown anything like he's written about, which is most assuredly for the best. Still, wow, it's just so crazy that this research isn't more widely known. Heck, if I had known about this guy's research earlier, I would have totally done my student project over it. It probably would have fascinated June as well. She really loved this sort of stuff. Once she graduated, she told me she wanted to help the NPS control the spread of stuff like chronic wasting disease and white nose syndrome. She already had internships lined up with the USGS and everything too. You know, it's almost been a year since she and the others left for their trip. It doesn't hurt as much to think about anymore, really, but I won't lie and say that I don't miss them all terribly. Michael hasn't improved any recently, but that's no surprise, at least from what little I've heard. It's hard to get updates when he's being kept somewhere so far away. But I think they'd be proud of me for pulling myself together after everything. I'm helping the board create a memorial for them. It's helped, honestly. I'm getting closure, and that's more than some can say. I wasn't the only person their deaths affected. I hadn't spoken to Timothy's mother in such a long time until recently. And when I did, God bless her, she's been so kind to me despite everything. She's had it so hard this past year, but she never stopped reaching out to me. It was about time I returned the favor. So I've been helping her sort through some of Timothy's things for the memorial. It's been nice going down memory lane with her. Maybe next time I might even share some of the stories she told me about him during our talks. But for right now, I do need to get going. Me and David are going to get dinner soon, and I don't want to keep him waiting. So long, everybody, and have a good night. This is Tawny Jackson, signing off.
Action Play audio file recording 11.wave has been completed. Please enter next action into prompt. End session. Ending session now. Thank you for using the post 2 frequency system, user Canis Ru.